His amazing life. His name is Mark Calaway, and we welcome him to Off the Record. Mark, nice to see you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for doing this, and it means so much. We do wrestling interviews, but we do them totally out of character, and that's what we're talking about today. So I want to start off by asking you, what's it like for you, even though you still go by the name, The Undertaker, to enter the ring in a motorcycle as Mark Calaway?
It's still a rush. After all the years that I did, as I went with the original Deadman character. This is, all those years people always wanted to, what's the other side? What's the other side? So I had a couple of real serious injuries, and I ended up taking some time off. And I said, you know what? It's time for me to freshen the Undertaker up and give the fans too something that they've always wanted to see. And some people have accepted it, and some people are like, well, it's not the same Undertaker. Well, it's the same Undertaker. It's just Undertaker evolved, is what it is. But it's a rush for me. Everybody knows that I'm big time into bikes and that whole life too. So it's a kick for me to come out there and just show a different side of myself.
I'm fascinated by the origin of the Undertaker, and we know the evolution. But tell me the story of how the Deadman came into being.
Well, the original Undertaker was the brainchild of Vince McMahon, and it's kind of a collaboration between Vince and myself. He had this idea that he always liked the image of that old Western style Undertaker with the long black coat and the big black hat. And he bestowed the name on me, and then let me take the ball and run with it.
Now, you were right. You were out of work for a time. You were WCW. You're out of work. You go to meet with Vince. You actually met in his house. There's no work available. Then your phone rings, right?
Right. Yeah. I'd left WCW. They didn't have much going on for me. So I had this meeting with Vince, and I said, well, I'm just going to, I'm going to sweep Vince off his feet, and I'm going to go in there, and he's going to offer me a job right away. And that didn't happen. He said, well, maybe at the beginning of the year we might have something, So I basically left with no job, and I'd already left WCW, and I figured, well, I'd be going back to Japan or something like that. And one day I'm sitting at home, and the phone rings, and I hadn't spoke with Vince too many times, so I really didn't recognize the voice right away, but it was, hello, is this the Undertaker? And I was a little bit taken back, like, all right, who's calling me? Which one of my buds is calling me? And I don't know if they thought I was dead or what, but then it dawned on me that it was Vince, and I said, hell yeah, I'm the Undertaker. I'm your Undertaker, and the rest is pretty much history.
So that's where Hell Yeah started too. You created it right
He gives me a little kickback here and there, I got copyrights to it.
Do you like the fact that wrestling has evolved? You've been in the Federation for 12 years now, and 12 years ago, this interview would never have taken place. You would never have gone out of character. Is this progress, or is this a step back?
I think it's a sign of the times. Our audience is much more in tune to what we do, and I think just as much what happens behind the scenes now is just as much important to them as what happens in the ring.
Do you like it better, though?
Yes and no.
What's the no part?
The no part is, there are certain things that happen backstage that it's no one's business.
What's the kind of thing that gets revealed now that isn't our business that wouldn't have been revealed 12 years ago?
Who may be coming in, who's, you try and use the element of surprise a lot of times in your TV shows. And there's wrestlers coming in or whatever a storyline may be, or now there's the whole internet thing that goes on that just it really makes it hard for us to do our job and do our job well sometimes.
So take us into the locker room. I hear that you're a general back there. I hear that actually once upon a time, and this was a while ago, that Shawn Michaels was debating whether or not he was actually going to do the job, and you looked at him before he went through the curtain and said, do the job. Do you have that kind of role backstage right now, and in particular when it relates to the new guys who are actually the old guys, NWO?
That title's kind of been bestowed on me. I mean, it was nothing that I actually went out and politics for or anything like that. I take a lot of pride in what I do, and I take a I have a lot of pride in Vince McMahon and the fact that he gave me an opportunity to be very successful in life. And my number one agenda, and probably the why I'm known as the locker room leader, is the fact that I put the business before everything else. I don't have my own agenda. I have our business's agenda. So yeah, everybody, you have to do business. And if
do
you
they have to answer to you backstage if they screw up? Do you force them to answer to you? I mean, you talk about any locker room of a professional sports team that is successful has a leader that is the disciplinarian. Can't come from the coach because the coach isn't one of the guys.
I think overall, I think a lot of people look to me for answers on how to deal with situations, especially when something's going on. But we have a total way of policing ourselves before it has to get up to the upper office. And I take that role seriously because I think there's a lot of times that things can be nipped in the bud in the dressing room at the heat of the moment before things.
So how do you handle NWO in particular? You're talking about 3 guys that came over from WCW that undeniably were a cancer in the locker room. I mean, that organization went down, died essentially because the egos in a lot of ways were too big.
Yeah, that's true. And those guys came in with a huge rap on them. I mean, I dealt with them all before in their previous stints here. I'd be lying if I told you I didn't have my reservations about them coming in because of what happened down there. Now I wasn't there, but hearsay, and and the people that had already come up before those guys, they had their opinions of how they were doing things. So they're back to the dressing room, and as many young guys that we have, I had a lot of reservations about, okay, this element coming in and, influencing our younger talent and making bad decisions but so far those guys have been fine. But
you'll keep an eye on them, right?
No doubt.
Okay.
Not only me, I think everybody will. It's a different, the WWF locker room is completely different from what those guys have ever probably been around. That's a close-knit group of guys. You know what? They all out there to do business, and there's no time for all the BS.
Right. And, you know what? We got a lot more to talk about. His name is Mark Calaway. The lead up to WrestleMania 18 in Toronto. That's the Undertaker's bike. And as he told you, Mark Calaway is all about the bikes. Guys get hurt in bikes, but also they get hurt in the ring. And I'm wondering, you continue to roll year after year. It's 12 years in the Federation right now. Do you ever worry about ending up like Mick Foley, one of the greatest wrestlers ever, but a guy who really can't do much at this stage in his life?
Yeah, you have to be concerned about your health, but then you'd have to decide whether it's all worth to you. Anytime you go out to the ring, you risk not being able to walk back, and then of course all the years, it's going to take its toll. But I guess any athlete that does anything is later on in life, he's going to have to pay the price for
right,
being...
but yours even more profound, also because of the expectation, which is, you're hurt, big deal. You get out there. There's 20,000 fans out there, and it seems like your sport, more than any other, looks at the guy in the stands and says, you got to go on. And I want to show you, watch your monitor, and we'll throw the folks at home this as well. This is Hell in the Cell 2. Probably the most famous wrestling match of our time. Mick Foley fell from the top of the cage. They told him it's over, and he gets back up and does it again. What are you thinking right now as you're up there?
I think I'm in for a long night.
Not as long as Mick's.
Well, yeah, Mick had a little longer night than I did. I tell you what, when he, when I tossed him off of the stage, or not off of the cage, it was like time stopped. And people say they have outer body experiences and things like that. I could actually, standing on the cage, watching him fly, I could actually see him, and I could actually see myself standing up there. I didn't think Mick Foley would get up from that. It was such a violent impact, and you just can't. The TV doesn't do it justice. You know what I'm saying? As far as the sound, it was for him to get up off of that.
That's
right there.
The first fall, which is on the table, which he scripted, right? That was
right.
planned. They're carrying him away, and are you thinking right now someone's got to stop this?
I'm thinking that he's seriously hurt, but this one was a lot worse than the first one. That panel wasn't supposed to break loose. And he was actually out on his feet for probably the next, I don't know, 2-3 minutes.
Did you think about stopping it at any time?
I actually told Mick. I said, Mick, I said, just stay down. You know, his tooth had gone through his lip, was lodged in his nostril. He's bleeding from the mouth. You know, you can look at someone's eyes and tell you, you know, they're not there. And for the next 2 to 3 minutes after that fall, Mick wasn't there, you know. And true to his professionalism, and Mick cared about what fans thought, and it was his duty to perform and go out. He stuck it out, and I mean, it was violent, and it, you know, once he got up and, you know, and he got the cobwebs shaken loose. I mean, it didn't stop there. I mean, there were the tacks, there was there were the punches, and it was a violent night for Mick Foley.
You are a boxing fan. You and I were talking before we went on the air how boxing's your favorite sport.
Right.
In boxing, though, if a guy's hurt, the referee steps in and stops the fight. You don't have that. Your sport is all about the crowd. You got to continue.
Yeah. I mean, unless something happens where there's absolutely no way that you can continue, most guys, and it's not about, you know, if it was up to Vince or something, yeah, they would probably stop the match and get the guy out of there. But I think that's what separates wrestlers in the WWF from any other sport. Those guys take so much pride, and they feel so honored to be out in that ring performing that whatever it takes.
Does it piss you off, though, that wrestling, at least in some circles, has the stigma of not being a sport, right?
Yeah.
And the fact is, in other sports, guys get to heal. They have disabled lists. They have injury lists. You know what? You like boxing. Guys fight twice a year. You go out night after night. Does that bother you?
You know, it really used to eat me up that people always, you'd hear professional wrestling and you went, you got a snicker, you know. But you know what? I got over that because I know what I do. I know the people that come and pay their hard-earned money to watch us perform. I know they appreciate it, and so I don't sweat the light stuff because it really doesn't matter. But it really used to eat me up because no one really understands the physical abuse that we have to put our bodies through. Everybody thinks that when you get hit with a chair, that's showbiz. It's you know.
Yeah, you were telling me a story. We got to go to break. That he had a broken bone around his eye socket. That
the whole eye socket was
profoundly injured. Not only did you finish the match, but you wrestled for 2 more days. That's the way wrestling is. I got a lot more questions. Thanks so much for being candid and honest. And the viewers, you guys at home, emailed us your questions. We'll get them to this guy, Mark Calaway. It's the Hurts. You got to arrive in style. And you know what? I still think this was one of the most intriguing works that you guys had. And even to this day, it still works for me. Just the whole aspect of the Hearse and the Undertaker. And you've moved beyond that. But that, and for a lot of people, was just something really cool and something really successful.
Yeah, I think that's probably be remembered as my legacy, is that part of it. And who's to say? You never know what drastic thing might happen in my life.
You may be in a hearse one more time at the very least.
At least once more.
All right, I got a ton of questions. You know, as you may not know this is not what we do on a daily basis on our show. But when we get a chance for a wrestler, we know our audience wants it, and we give them the chance to ask the questions. Mark, what did you think of the Undertaker versus Undertaker feud?
On paper, I thought it was very intriguing. I was kind of disappointed in how it ended up. It didn't get the mileage out of it that we were really looking for. But I think on paper, it was a good idea.
All right, this for Taker. When you were champ,
right,
and of course you were, title matches would always mean something big. Do they mean less today than when you held it?
I don't know that the title means less. I think our TV is more storyline driven now. I mean, definitely the title is still important, and whoever owns the title is, you know, I mean, he's the guy. But I think the title is kind of taken maybe a step back due to storyline.
Right. Okay. And of course, you're a physical presence in the ring, and one of the questions that we got relates to part of your physicality, which is, what's the tattoo on the back of your neck?
That's the fighting skeleton. You know, a lot of my tattoos have to do with skeletons and skulls and all that, and that's the war skeleton right there.
How many of those do you have? Not fighting skeletons, tattoos in general.
Well, they all kind of run together through the years.
they
so
do.
I got
Well,
one
when
on my
you start
left arm,
running out
one
of
on my
body
right.
parts, they all start to run together.
I got 2 big ones one on each arm, and then a few here scattered.
Are you
there.
still getting them though? Are you still in the tattoo phase? Because I had my tattoo phase, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Every once in a while, I find time and get the motivation to go sit there and get hit. You know, get a little ink, but it's not. I'm not nearly as motivated.
Well,
as I once
this is
was.
probably the biggest question that I can ask you. Rumor has it that you are retiring after WrestleMania 18. Is it true?
No. You know what? I contemplated retirement on a few. I had a couple of serious injuries a couple of years ago, and the one thing that I don't want to be is past my prime. I don't want to be out there in the ring with people saying, you know, you should have seen him here. You know, I don't want people out there feeling sorry for me. As long as I can continue to stay healthy and I can keep pace with the Young Bucks, you know, when I can stay pace with the Rocks and those guys, then there's no need for me to leave.
Some would say that the guy you just described is Hogan.
Some may say that. You know, he's on his own agenda. I don't think at my age or at his age, this would still be the life for me. I don't know that I need it at that point. But you know what? That's Hogan's decision. If he wants to continue on, who's to say? He is an icon.
Toughest thing for any athlete, though, is to not so much give up the money because, you know, hopefully you'll retire with money in your pocket, but to give up the 18,000 people that would cheer you because that will never happen again as long as you live.
That's true. Once out of sight, out of mind. And I think I keep a pretty good finger on the pulse of where I'm at. You know, I speak with Vince quite a bit. You know, I question myself. You know, I question myself on, you know, do I still have it? You know, and I feel that I do, but I need other input. I need people's feedback.
You call me, I'll let you know, okay? I'll let you know when it's time.
All right, I'm going to hold you to
I'll
that.
give you actually a hand signal when you're in the ring, when it's time to retire.
Give me this one.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I got you.
More to ask this guy. His name is Mark Calaway. As we come to you from Fan Access, WrestleMania 18. Interested? You can call your local cable company or satellite provider or Famous Players Theater to get hooked up for WrestleMania 18. We're here at Fan Access, but, you know, the best access is when you host a show because you get access to the guys like Mark Calaway. Fascinating interview. I really admire the fact that you came on and you said, let's just talk, which is great.
That's great, man.
So I mentioned Shawn Michaels backstage, that you had to discipline him and said, go out there and do the job. Was that true?
That's a variation of the story. There was a lot of problems going on around that time with Shawn and WrestleMania that year, and that was the year Tyson was there, and there's a lot of headaches being caused, and it was questionable whether Shawn Michaels was going to do the right thing or not. And, you know, who really knows? But I'll just put it this way. If it hadn't have been done the way it was done, it would have been probably been a very long night for Shawn Michaels. And then, you know.
You're scaring me, and I'm sitting here, and I didn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't happen. And thank God. And I, you know what? As far as a performer, Shawn Michaels, he's off the chart, or was off the chart. But you know, there were times there where, you know, he could be a real pain in the ass. And if that was going to be the case, then I was gonna do what I thought needed to be done.
So since we're all about being candid and being honest, you were telling me that your job, you know, backstage to some extent, and it's an unofficial job, is to keep people in line. Who have you had to discipline on the current roster?
I tell you, there's a guy that I think that has all the gifts and all the tools in the world is Big Show. I mean, this guy, he's 7'2", he's 500 pounds. He can do anything in the world that he wants athletically. But I think sometimes his motivation lacks. And you know, I remember it was in Joe Louis Arena one night. He came in and he was cutting up, and you know, and I think I was probably in a match with him. And he was cutting up and, you know, talking about, oh, you know, I'm going to blow you up, which means I'm going to gas you. You know, I'm going to have you out there tired and sucking wind. In a matter of 30 seconds, once the match started, not to say I didn't have a fire lit under me, but, you know, he was completely out of shape and couldn't catch his wind. He was hanging on the ropes. And that bothers me for somebody that has those gifts that he has, not to put forth the effort to keep yourself in shape. And also, I mean, he had a problem of treating people.
And you let him know that.
And I let him know it real quick. And, you know,
Which I admire. I mean, it's one thing to discipline the smallest guy in the roster. It's the other thing when he's 7'2", 500 pounds.
Yeah.
You know what? There's a lot about you that people now admire that they didn't before because they got a glimpse into who this Mark Calaway is. And I hate to break the story, but you're a nice guy. Mark,
Well,
thanks a lot for joining us.
I'm working on it.
Hope you come back and do it again.
Thanks for having me. I'd be glad to come back.
See you next time.
Off the